Hey guys and gals, this is Jesse Wise and you're listening to the Train to Hunt podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Kudu Point Broadheads. I have been extremely satisfied with the tunability of these heads. I've been shooting them for the last 3 years and I virtually don't have to touch my sight when I switch from my field points to these broadheads. They hit in the same spot every time. If you have any questions about these broadheads, please visit kudupoint.com.
I'm Kenton Claremont, and you're listening to the Train to Hunt podcast. Dude, there he is. He's coming in. Come in. Get ready.
This is Bobby D. Wiggles.
Well, we're recording now.
Cool. So. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the Train to Hunt podcast, number 2 with myself, Kenton Claremont, and Jesse James Weiss. We are stoked to have our guest on today. Ryan, welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Kenton. Jesse, thanks for having me on.
ST Healthy Hunter.
Stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Yeah, that's clever, by the way.
Well, I can't take credit for it. That was all my wife's doing.
Oh, was it?
I have, I was so opposed to any social media that she had to come up with a name and get me, hooked up with my Instagram account and all that nonsense. So, no, I had no part in it, but she's creative.
I believe that.
For sure. I wanted nothing to do with it. I'm hooked now. I enjoy it, actually, but I really did not want to be a part of social media, especially Instagram and Facebook and all that. But
I buy that. Ryan and I met, how many years ago now? 8?
Oh, man, probably 8 years.
About 8 years ago. We met in the backcountry.
We did. We were best place to meet somebody.
Yeah, we were pretty deep. And when you meet somebody out there, you gain instant respect for them. I got to know Ryan a little bit on that trip, just a little, enough to know that this is my kind of dude right here. Like he's one of us. And I, between then and now, have tried to do some research on, I wonder whatever happened to Ryan Lampers. And guess who was not available on social media? Ryan Lampers. Yeah. He was a tough guy to track down. So I'm buying that, Ryan. I'm buying that.
Yeah. There was a lot of years we weren't connected at all.
Yeah.
And I kind of followed you with what you were doing with Train to Hunt a little bit from a distance, just hearing about it. And then lo and behold, we got reconnected.
Yeah,
down in Nevada.
Yeah, it's awesome.
At an event.
Yeah, you won a free entry fee.
Yeah, this guy over here, Jesse, he got on
Bowman.
The Instagram and he gave me a free entry.
And you've been hooked ever since.
I have been hooked. I really enjoy it. I love it. Looking forward to this season.
Yeah,
we're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
We're definitely gonna get into your Train to Hunt life. And but before we do that, a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with you. And if you haven't checked out the Hunt Harvest Health podcast, it's definitely worth a listen. You should search for that and take a listen to Ryan and Hillary. Ryan's wife is a doctor and is very knowledgeable in all areas of health and fitness and all things related. And Ryan is the hunter of the family and brings a lot to the table in that
I'm
respect.
the dodo and she's the brains.
Someone's got to be the beauty and someone's got to be the brain.
I like what we have. It's perfect. It works.
And Ryan's a big gardener. Like, not only hunter.
Let's not get too far ahead.
Okay.
We'll let Ryan explain it. I want Ryan to introduce himself to our little world here and let our listeners in on who Ryan Lampers is. So
okay,
Ryan.
Yeah, Washington born, raised, always been here. Me and my wife. I met my wife in Alaska 20 some odd years ago. Bought a little house in a small town of Granite Falls, Washington, and been running a small business out of Granite Falls for a lot of years, and real happy with what we do. It's good, honest work, and I'm just a diehard hunter. It's kind of what I look forward to every year. Me and my wife, we've really gotten into, and she's she's pushed me into more of the health realm than I probably used to be in my 20s. She's so knowledgeable about nutrition and everything health related that it was natural that I was going to start absorbing these things and getting into it. I've always been a gardener. I hated it when I was a kid. I used to make fun of my dad for doing it because all I could see is it pulled him off the river. Like, I wanted to be steelhead fishing every day. And my dad's out here pulling weeds in the middle of the summer, in June, July, when summer fish are running. And so I'd make fun of him all the time. I just could not make sense of why you'd want to be pulling weeds and growing, vegetables when you could be out fishing the river.
Right.
But, yeah, that's kind of how it works. I eat crow. I love gardening now. I'm really big into it. Anything food related, food, growing your food, harvesting food, whether that's, harvesting wild edibles like mushrooms, we're really into that. Hunting your food, really big into that. And then that's kind of what we base our podcast on, is talking about just lifestyle, hunting related, nutrition, health. And it's got some traction. People are really interested in that these days, and they kind of want to know more about food, not just, most hunters know where their meat comes from, but we kind of get into that other side of the table, or other side of the plate, so to speak. It's all the garden vegetables. And
yeah.
So I'm really big into canning food, preserving food of any type, dehydrating it, and pickling pretty much everything out of the garden that I can, and just putting it up and holding on to it all winter long. So I'm a cheap sucker, and I don't like going to the store if I don't have to.
Yeah.
So I'd rather crack a jar open or go to the freezer than go get something from the store.
Copy that.
Yeah.
So did your life start when you met your wife? Because that's where you started this is who I am.
Yeah.
Was there a life before Hillary? I mean, I totally get it. Like, it's your life is kind of into three categories, right? Your life before you meet your wife, and then your life before you have kids.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And, you skipped the whole
growing up.
The whole growing up.
Yep. Yeah. Pre-wife.
Tell us about that, buddy.
Thinking, but I've been with my wife a lot of years. So
yeah.
Before that, so honestly, grew up in an outdoor family. My dad hunted, he fished, he gardened, he did all that. All my family, my grandparents, uncles, everybody was really into hunting and fishing. Fishing was a real big part of my growing up. I was that kid that got dropped off on the river. While my dad goes to work, he dropped me off in the morning. This is way before I could, drive or anything. This is, 12, 13 years old, and he'd just leave me there all day long. I don't think that happens today, but it did back then. And so, I'd just be on the river with these grown men all day fishing steelhead. And that was my world, through, junior high and high school even. That was my life, was steelhead fishing and bird hunting, really into bird hunting. We had Brittany's back then, running birds and chasing chuckers around the mountains, getting that, that endurance early, I think, has helped me in the later years. But
that's no easy task.
It's not.
If anybody's never chucker hunted, it is. You better train, because it's
get a bag limit of chucker, which in our state is 6. That's a solid day of hiking.
Yeah. And
really working those hills and some steep country, some shale country. Getting laughed at by chuckers all day long. It was a good stepping stone for me, I think, in my childhood. It's just getting after those birds. And I really didn't get into big game hunting for a while, but started off rifle hunting, got right into muzzleloader hunting early. And, I'd shoot my bow on occasion, but never really got into that until, I'd say probably, I don't know, early 20s, right in there. Okay. Started really getting into bow hunting. That was kind of my youth. Was when I think back to, junior high and high school and all that, it was bird hunting and fishing. Just
couldn't wait for that bell to ring so you could go hit the river.
Oh man. Yeah. It was just all day long on the river and, trying to keep up with the adults, trying to catch fish like they did. And, I got pretty dang good at it. I got out of high school, and immediately I wanted to go be a guide. I just wanted to kind of, have more adventure, see new places while I was young. So I went right up to Alaska, right out of high school, checked that out, got involved with with a camp up there that it was on the Alagnac River, Bristol Bay watershed. Great fishing, salmon fishing. I was really well versed in running a boat, jet boat, prop, all that. And so I fit right in, at an early age with these guys. And I ended up spending a lot of years up there and did really well at it, really loved, all the people I was hanging out with, hardcore fishing guys. I was one of the youngest guys up there when I started. And then,
how old were you?
I was 20.
Jeez, just a young buck.
Yeah, I was young.
Yeah.
And that first year, I actually met my wife. That first year in Alaska. Last thing on the planet I ever would have expected when I went up there.
Right.
I'm just, I had already been there, I think, probably 2 months, digging ditches, digging up the permafrost, trying to, get these pipes thawed out and all that kind of stuff before fishing season. And then just as fishing season's getting ready to start, this hot chick comes walking off a plane, coming into work, and,
and you fixed your hair.
I did. You think I'm scruffy now? You should have seen me up there.
You probably couldn't grow a beard back then.
No, heck no. No way. No, I was clean shaven. But no, it was a great time, and I'd spent about 5 months a year up there in Alaska. And back then, it was perfect because I wasn't really into bow hunting yet. So I'd come back at the end of September, go up in May, come back in September, and it'd go right into October, and that was rifle season for deer. Right. And that was my world. And then we do some late hunts in November. But that kind of led me down a path of seeing other places. Went to another fish camp in Alaska, spent a couple years over on the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia, fishing over there. Similarly, we had these great steelhead rivers on one side of the peninsula. We got to go over there just as communism was crashing, and so they were kind of opening up that peninsula to us guys to go over, check it out. It was the best job in the world. I got to sit there with the pilots on a helicopter, fly around, pick a spot on the river where we could set that chopper down, go down, fish that river, and see if it was fishable for clients, see if it had enough steelhead, it had the right water that we could bring clients in and actually, make a go of it. Yeah. So we did that for part of the summer, chasing steelhead and salmon. And then we'd come over to the other side and fish this giant river, the Japanova River. And it was just rainbow trout. It was basically there to catch giant rainbow trout. And they had these char and fish, it's called a kunja. It's a big giant char. And it was... that's the life I wanted right there. It was seeing these amazing places, getting experiences I knew I was fortunate to have more than a lot of my buddies back home. They weren't getting to go see these places and fly around in choppers and, see volcanoes blowing up every few minutes. And that Kamchatka is just it's an unbelievable place.
Have you been back since?
I haven't. Nope. But that was a couple years over there, and then I have not been back. As much as I'd like to, back then it was really unexplored. It's changed a lot from when I got over there to where it is now. There's a lot more people running camps and clients and whatnot. It's changed. I think when I got there, people said, this is probably what Alaska was pre-float plane, 100 years ago, back before there were float planes flying all over it.
Right.
So I was seeing what Alaska looked like before all that happened, and Alaska got busy. And now I think it's not at that point by any stretch, but it's a lot busier than it was back then. But still, it's an unbelievable place. The rivers, the opportunity for hunting, fishing, everything, outdoors. It's a great place. It's a little sketchy. I mean,
is it?
I'll admit it's definitely got its disadvantages being an American going over there. I remember, from Alaska, we had clients with us, so we had to carry a sawed-off shotgun. It's one of those things where you had a sawed-off on your back all the time. because of the bears. You know, we're catching sockeye.
Right.
We've got, you know, we're loading the fish box up with sockeye for these guys to take home. So we always had little bear issues, and so you felt really safe with the sawed off on your back.
Right.
But when I got to Russia, as an American, I was not allowed. They were not going to allow me to have that. So they gave me a flare gun. So I didn't feel quite as safe with that flare gun as
yeah,
as
I bet not.
And that was just one of the natives gave me a flare gun. They didn't really want me to have anything, but that was my defense.
They also didn't want you to eat, and so they thought, we'll give him a flare gun. How much damage could you do with this?
Well, this will shut him up. He'll quit asking for a shotgun. And you know.
Did you have any big bear encounters over there that
No,
you had
I was
to use
fortunate.
your flare gun?
I did not. I was fortunate. We saw a lot of bears, and I'd do some hike-ins, you know, where they'd drop me off the chopper. I'd blow up a raft. I'd float guys down, and then we'd fish. Or they'd drop me off with some clients, and we'd hike to these tributaries that come into the main channel of the river. And these are like just untouched, unseen, pristine waters where the fish are just really, really stupid. Fishing giant rainbows with mouse patterns, you know, on the top, you know, topwater stuff. And yeah, we'd run into some bears, but we were just real fortunate. We never had a real close encounter where I felt, you know, I was threatened or anything like that. So
Unreal.
yeah. Yep.
So skip ahead a little bit and tell us, like, at what point did your fish brain turn into big game brain? Like, you made a pretty was it a swift transition, or was it just a lifestyle change, or how did that go?
Well, I think, you know, even all those years up there, you know, how hunters are wired, you're always thinking about hunting, right? It's one of those things. Even if you have that 2-week-a-year hunt that you do every year, you're not that into it, but you've got a little set amount of time. You think about it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's just how we're wired, I think. That was me back then. But that really did change. I think, I'll be honest, I got burnt out a little bit on the guiding with fishing, because I would go from there, I'd come back home, and I was teaching fly casting clinics, and I was leasing these lakes and bringing guys out to catch fish, you know, just to take a picture and, you know, teach them how to fly fish, basically.
Right.
Now, so I got burnt out, and, you know, I kind of put my energy a lot more into hunting. And, you know, it was a pretty quick progression. In fact, one of the guys that was a big influence for me in bow hunting for elk was a guy I met on one of my lakes that I had leased. He was actually, his name was Dallas Blood, and he was from Idaho.
Was he from Post Falls, Idaho, by chance?
No, he was just a little north of Coeur d'Alene, Hayden.
Okay, because there was a lot of blood brothers, like, right there in Post
There's
Falls.
a lot of
There's a lot of bloods.
I'm sure they're part family. Yep. And I met him through one of the guys I was guiding. It was the next quarterback for the Seahawks, John Freeze.
Oh yeah.
That was his old baseball coach, Dallas Blood. And I started talking, you know, hunting with John out on the water one day, and he was like, "Man, I got to introduce you to my old baseball coach. This guy lives and breathes elk hunting with a bow." He's like, right now he's probably off sharpening broadheads. And I'm thinking, man, bring him out. You know, bring that guy out, and I'll give him a day out here, and I'll just pick his brain. I want to learn everything I can.
You know, John Freeze was the quarterback at the University of Idaho.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Really well. He was like a superhero over there.
Lefty. Yeah, he was a stud.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I think he might have been like the second guy. I know there was the Cammy kid, Ken something or other, and then John Freeze.
I think John held all the records for the longest time.
John was he was the guy in University of Idaho.
Great guy. I got to be pretty good buddies with John. He'd come out and fish with a bunch of the other Seahawks as well, and Mac Strong, Matt LeBounty, all those guys would come out and catch fish on the lakes. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it was just a strange connection. He brought me, I got to talking with this guy, Dallas Blood, and he really got me excited. He invited me over to his place in Idaho. I spent, it was like 3 weeks that first year with him. I just kind of dropped everything after the fishing season, went over there, stayed with him, and just soaked it up. Learned an absolute ton about bow hunting elk and calling elk and getting in close and all that. And so, I give that guy a ton of credit. He was just salt of the earth, worked in the mill. his wife was a mail lady, and he just knew elk, man. He just loved doing, spending time in the woods and hunting, fishing, and all that. So I spent as much time as I could with him, and just a big influence for me. And so, he taught me a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there, and I've had numerous discussions with numerous people about how there's so many great elk hunters that nobody even knows about.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. They're
quiet.
They're mill workers or construction workers or pick something, and they're just a boatload of knowledge. And they go out and they get it done, and nobody really knows about it. It's pretty easy to get caught up in like the small world of social media and hunting, and like a lot of these great hunters out there, they don't know who they are and they don't care. Like they're not trying to be somebody. They're just out hunting elk because they love to do it. And those guys are just a boatload of knowledge.
Yep. Yeah, they sure cut that learning curve. I mean,
so
it's so much time to learn that stuff, on your own.
So this guy teaches you. Does he take you out?
Oh yeah.
And
I was with him every day.
And then you're basically a solo guy. Have you always been a solo guy? Is that something that you kind of worked into over the years, or what's the story behind Ryan Lampert's killing stuff by himself all the time?
As for elk, I've done most of my elk hunting solo. But growing up, it was, I'd hunt with my dad, and then, I don't know. I just wanted to see more, go further, all that kind of thing. And so I had got a great hunting partner in Joe Pyburn. He's a guy that if I am hunting with somebody, it's going to be Joe.
Usually Joe.
And so, but yeah, honestly, these days, every year that goes by, I do more trips solo. But I've always done a lot of my hunting solo for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, I could go on and on about why. I think there's advantages and there's just things in me that I love about it. But
well, let's dig into it. Let's dig into it, man. Like, what do you see as the advantages, disadvantages of hunting solo?
Well, disadvantages, I mean, out of the gates, when you're by yourself, once you get an animal down, obviously, you are in a world of hurt, especially on elk, right? And especially a lot of the places that we go. So that's one of the big ones. I think in the early years it was safety concerns.
Sure.
It always seems like, go with a buddy, make sure you're with somebody, what if you get hurt?
Just in case.
Yeah. But then over time, you take a trip here, you take a weekend here, you do more trips. You realize it's not such a big, bad, scary place out there. And, you're not twisting ankles all the time and blowing knees out. But, and there's just, I don't think solo hunting's for everybody. I think some people love it. Some people are okay being by themselves. They got the mentality for it, or introverted, I don't know.
Right.
And some people are not.
I would venture to say, Ryan, that there's probably 80% of the hunting population has never spent a night in the woods by themselves.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe more.
I think you're right.
But I know that I've hunted with people for, a lot of years that we finally go out on our first hunt, and it's pretty easy to tell when you're getting you're quite a ways from camp or quite a ways from the truck, and it's starting to get dark, and they're ready to get back.
Sure.
They're just not, a lot of people just aren't comfortable in the dark.
Yeah.
For one, and then by themselves, they're really uncomfortable. They get lonely really quick. They get scared. They're scared of the dark. And I'm talking about decent elk hunters, guys that are good. That they just don't like to be out there by themselves.
Right. Yeah, and I completely get it because, I think the first few trips for me were a little spooky. When you're by yourself, you hear noises at night. But I wanted it so bad. I wanted to be a mountain man. I wanted to be able to spend that time by myself out there and conquer everything. And I wanted it so bad that I just forced myself to keep doing it until I was comfortable doing it, and I liked doing it. And I actually prefer to do it because just being kind of a self-sufficient type person. I want everything, all those decisions. I don't want to have to like run it by, and so I'm going to make this move and let's talk about it. I just like to kind of go with your gut, let your instincts take over and go for it. And, you know, I've just found that's worked good for me. And I have that, I'm pretty quiet. I'm not a big talker. And so I can spend weeks out there and be completely fine, not talking to anybody. Now, you know, the downside of that is I do like coming back to camp and you know, sharing stories. But I can hold out and do that when I get home.
You like somebody there when you kill an elk. So
it's pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool. But I also get a ton of satisfaction doing it myself. And I really enjoy that that part where you've just, all the decisions were yours. Yeah. Everything you did was hard. Going back as far as we go now, it's just hard work. And then once you are successful, that was all you. And now you got to pack it out, and that's going to be all you a lot of those times, which is, that's probably one of the most rewarding things you can do as far as once it's done and over with. You pack a bull out of the backcountry by yourself, and when you're completely done, you're spent.
Dude, you've done something. You've done something.
Yeah. You slap that tailgate up at the end of the trip, and you hop in there and start driving. You're feeling pretty dang good. I don't know that there's a better feeling than that, because you did it, especially when you're by yourself.
Agreed.
I'm not saying with a buddy it's anything less, but for me, I just get something out of that.
It feeds you, man.
It does. I just really enjoy it. I like that challenge.
My theory on the whole thing, and I've had a few new elk hunters, I really like taking people out in the elk woods for the first time or whatever, but I tell them all the same thing. I'm like, if you really want to learn, if you really want to hone in your instincts and learn how to hunt elk, go solo. You got to go solo, because you mentioned it. When you're solo, it's all instinct. There's no decisions to be made. You're not bouncing ideas off of people. It's your decision. This is what you decided to do. And if you go solo and make decisions that maybe weren't the right decisions, or you start second guessing your decision, or you blow an elk out or whatever, which you're gonna do, by the way, you're gonna make the wrong moves, or
at least that's normal people.
Yeah, right.
Well, I don't know.
But you learn, and I think that there's a lost art in trusting your instincts, in not second guessing your moves, and just being able to know where to go, and not having, again, like that second guessing. And you can only get that from solo hunting, because I think just by nature, we want to involve our second party. No matter who that person is, you want to, at least, if nothing else, you want to turn around and tell them what we're going to do. And
you want to run it by them and make sure they're okay with it.
Yeah, right.
And you know, I don't know, maybe it's a selfish thing, but I don't have those squabbles or those little conflicts, internal conflicts with, you know, I just kind of go. I feel like I should be over there. I go over there. I don't have that, well, maybe we should go this way. I mean, it's going to get dark in 2 hours. I don't know if we're going to get around.
Has it always been that way for you? Like, from the first time you went solo hunting? Like,
I think so.
You just trusted your instincts from the first get-go. That's rare.
There's something, when you're by yourself, you definitely pay attention a lot more. I think, you know, we're wired that way. Something deep down, it forces you to pay attention. It forces you to be a lot more careful. I know that. Yeah. I know when you're hiking around in you know, goat country or just some steep, nasty stuff, when you have a buddy, it's almost like it's not a fail-safe, but it's like you have somebody to help you out.
A safety net.
It's a safety net. Exactly. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. But if I'm by myself, I'm watching every step I take, because I know how close to danger you could be with one wrong step. Yep. You could blow a knee out. You could, you know, blow out an Achilles or whatever. I'm a lot more cautious when I'm by myself. I'm always thinking about that. And I've never had an issue. So maybe, you know, maybe if I had, things would be a little bit different. But I've just never had an issue in the mountains by myself.
Now, do you take like in-reach, or
I do.
You obviously take all the precautions, like if something does happen, because we all know, like, nature,
anything.
It's all on their terms, right?
And honestly, I took that inReach more for my wife's benefit because I could text her from the mountains. And then it was like, wow, and also the weather would be nice to know. Because when you do these extended trips, if you're there for 10 days, you're looking at the weather and you get a pretty good idea what's coming the 3-4 days in. But beyond that, if you're still back there, it's nice to have that inReach where I can text my cousin and say, hey, what do I have coming in? Should I go further, or does it look bad and I should start working my way the other way? It's a huge advantage having that inReach.
Yeah.
And just the fact that if there is a problem, usually the camp's on my back. So if I do hurt myself, I'm able to push that button and, tell somebody right where I'm at. Mm-hmm. I'll set up camp, stay warm, and just, I'll figure it out and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But without that, man, that's risky.
It is.
But there was a lot of years where there wasn't that, safety net.
Think about how many years that was and how many, guys were out there. And I remember a time when it was just dumb to go solo hunting because of, anything can happen out there, and people great hunters, great, guys with great field craft that, would be looked down on for going out solo, because if you get hurt back there, that's it. I mean, it's on you. And with today's technology, with inReach and all, these technologies that you can basically hit a button and there's going to be somebody coming to rescue you, period. It makes a little bit more sense. And I think that solo hunting obviously is not looked at in the same way it was, say, just 20 years ago. So.
Yeah, I remember guys used to say, oh, well, he was an idiot.
Yeah.
He got in trouble. Well, he should have had somebody with him. He should always hunt with a partner.
Yep.
That was a thing for the longest time. And, a lot of people still, I think, may think that, but
I don't.
The inReach is definitely, it definitely helps out with that. And like I said, for the wife to be able to check in with me, and I can check in with her and let her know everything's fine and I'm not freezing to death on some mountain with a broken leg.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty huge.
So, give us your, what's the hunt story? What's the story that you tell the most? Like, what's the most memorable hunt that you tell people the most?
It's probably my very first deer. I've told that story many times. I was 14 and, long story short, I got lost, very lost. Somehow, some way, I got out of there alive, and I survived it, but I shouldn't have. And that was my very first story. I was hunting by myself at 14. My dad gave me all the freedom in the world to go, chase critters. And we were in the backcountry. We were up there 7,000 feet in Washington, and I ended up getting myself a 4-point, but I went the complete wrong direction. And then the snowstorm came in, fog rolled in, and I was lost, just flat out lost. I went the other direction for hours.
Were you dragging deer at that point?
This is what much of a rookie I was. I didn't know how to really break down a deer at that point.
Yeah.
All I knew is you cut the head off. So I'd cut the head off. I mean, there was probably like 6 inches of neck still on this thing, and I cut the head off. I pulled the guts out.
Yeah.
Cut the head off, and I just wanted to carry that back to show, my dad once I got back to camp. So I lugged this giant, swollen, rutted out mule deer neck with the antlers back for miles the wrong direction.
What did you do with the rest of it? Did you skin it out and hang it in a tree?
No. I pulled the guts out. It was cold. I mean, it was down in the, teens. A lot of snow. It was cold mountains. I just pulled the guts out and packed it full of snow, and that's all I knew how to do.
Cut the head off and away you went.
Cut the head off and away I went.
No kidding. And you walked for
I went for miles the wrong direction.
So how did it end up? Obviously you're here, so.
So I still don't know how I survived this one. It was just one of those things where this is such a huge area. This is in a wilderness area, wilderness setting. Fog rolled in, started snowing. I have no idea where I'm at this point.
Yep.
It is thick. And I'm walking. It's getting dark. I can't see very far. And I look ahead, and I see a dude walking in front of me, and he disappears into the white. I run up there. He disappeared into a white wall tent. There was a wall tent. He went out, got some wood, and was hauling it in. Oh. This is a place where there was one camp dropped. It was a drop camp. And I happened to run into it. I just happened to be in the drainage that drop camp got dropped.
Wow.
And there probably wasn't another camp within 12 miles of there. And so I ran into them. They invited me in, of course. I'm just a young kid. They showed me on a map where I was.
Packing ahead.
Now, I had been in this country in the summer, catching cuts and stuff out of some high lakes. And so I knew, and as soon as I looked on the map, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is where I'm at. I mean, I got these big switchbacks I got to traverse. I got a bunch of elevation to get out of here. And, we didn't have a way to communicate back then.
Right. That was before cell phones.
That was way before cell phones. Mm-hmm. So they showed me where I was. I didn't have a headlight. This is before headlights. We had those little mag lights.
Yeah.
And so they gave me a mag light, and they wanted me to stay there because it's getting dark. And but I knew my dad would be worrying about me, and so I thought, well, I gotta go for it. And so they said, well, leave your gun and leave your deer head here. It's like, nope, I'm gonna pack it with me. I'm gonna get out of here. So I think I don't remember what time. It took me hours to get out of that hole, up a bunch of switchbacks, traverse around the other mountain where I had started from, and I ended up getting back. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Did it clear up though? I mean,
oh no, it kept going. The nice thing is there was a rutted out trail that I could follow from where they were, but so that got me to the top and out of there. I was so hungry and so thirsty at that point. I was dry heaving on the mountain.
Man.
And I did eventually set my gun down, set my deer down. I just couldn't go any further with that weight. But it was miraculous that I actually made it through that first deer.
So mentally, you're 14 years old. You're in the middle of the wilderness. You've killed a deer. You realize it starts snowing, foggy. You realize you don't know where you're at.
Yeah.
What are you freaking out at that point? Did you have to calm yourself down, or are you just like, well, I'm just going to keep walking?
To be honest, I was staying pretty calm. Yeah. And I probably shouldn't have been because of where I was. I didn't even have gloves. I didn't even have any gloves. I left them on the other side of the mountain. So, gear was pretty bad back then. It was like wool pants and just heavy gear. And I should have been freaking out. I should have been more worried than I was because it was within probably 20 minutes of complete dark, snowstorm, foggy, and I still don't know where I'm at. And I've gone the wrong direction. I don't have a tarp. I don't have a tent. I don't have any sleeping bag. I don't have a puffy jacket back then. So just to run into that guy,
that's a godsend right there.
Grace of God. That was super lucky. And so, I've always felt fortunate and still don't know how I made it out of there, but I did.
Basically, he's always been a badass.
Right. Ever since he was 14.
He's like, nah,
just ice water running through his veins.
Well, I could have went probably 20 yards. If I would have been 20 yards on the other side of the creek or whatever, I'd have never saw that camp.
Yeah.
And who knows where I'd be.
Which, it's a great segue into this next question, Ryan. Like, that's a good, what is it that maybe doesn't keep you so calm, but just makes you I'm just going to keep going. I'm just like I'm sure that we, as hunters, we all get into a point where it's, you kind of have a choice, whether it's a solo pack out on a bull elk or whatever. We all run into those little voices in our head that say, that's enough for tonight. Let's just keep, let's just call it quits, or any other person might hit a panic button and just call it quits. What is it what do you think is the driving force? Like what's the force behind Ryan Lampers and his, there's no stopping me. I'm just going to get it done.
Man, I don't know what it was back then for that experience, but I think today,
that might have been just youth.
Yeah.
And ignorance, just
probably.
We're not going to die out here.
Being stupid, probably on my part. I think today, I pride myself on just covering a lot of country and trying to get it, way back into the backcountry, separating myself from people or roads or trails or all that. And I think that force right there that keeps me going further, deeper, and just hiking all day if that's what's necessary is just my love for the mountains.
Yeah.
My love for that hunt, everything around that adventure, I love every part of it. And I know that's probably something that a lot of hunters have.
Yeah.
I just know for me, that is my drive, and my motor is get as far back as I can, and whatever it takes, you know, to complete that job of, you know, killing a buck or bull or whatever. That's, I don't know. It's hard to explain. That's a tough one because I don't know what it is. It's just, I know it's in me, and
it's big picture. It's about sacrifice now, reward later, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know that if I continue on this path, that you know what's on the other side of that,
sure.
and that the results and the gratification and the, you know, the feeling you get going deep and packing that bull elk out whole, you know, by yourself, and you know how it's going to feel at the end of that. Mm-hmm. And so that's
it. That is it. I mean, I like that feeling, like I mentioned on the truck ride home. Yeah. That's one of the happiest places I could be after a successful hunt, after I've given everything I got on that hunt and have packed it out and done it myself. That's not just a solo hunt. That's with a buddy. I've had hunts with my buddy, with Joe, where we leave it all out there. We've done everything we possibly can to have success. And then it's always a death march out. It's always heavy. It's always a grind. But there's always a cool story.
Yeah.
You're always like just completely wiped out and spent. And sounds corny. That's like my happy place when I'm at that point where I'm just wiped out.
Yep.
But I know that's going to be there if I push through the pain or whatever.
Any kind of stop sign.
The distances, the nasty weather. If I can just grind it out, usually good things happen.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that speaks to anybody in any walk of life, that if you have a goal in mind, our goal being go out, harvest an animal, get it back to the truck and onto the dinner plate.
Right.
No matter what your walk of life is, if you put your mind to something and you stick with it through thick and thin, like no matter how many, obstacles you come up against, or how many times you're like, oh man, I do not want to get out of bed and get out here and work out, or man, I do not want to work on this project today. If you just do it anyway, at the end of that, you're going to have this huge amount of gratification. And I would argue that the more adversity and the more obstacles you have to overcome, the more gratification there is in the end. And so we talked earlier, we are adventure seeking hunters.
Yeah.
We want the tough, we want the challenge. We're there for the challenge. In fact, I asked Ryan pre-podcast if he would rather shoot a 360 bull up the side of the road or a 300 bull 8 miles into the wilderness, and without hesitation,
it's in the wilderness.
I'll
for
take
sure.
the 300 bull every single time.
Yeah, and that's that's something that's hard to explain. We also talk, not all hunters are like that. A lot of hunters would take that 360 bull.
Sure,
it's bragging rights, right?
Right.
But there are some of us sickos that do like to. We don't like to shoot things close to the road, close to the trail. We'll put the blinders on for miles just to get back in there, because it's like that first day thing. You hear people say, what's the saying? You don't shoot the first day what you shoot the last.
Or shoot whatever you shoot on the last. Yeah, whatever you shoot on the last day, don't pass it up on the first. Which everybody says that.
I don't agree with that at all. I mean, why shoot on the first day when you could shoot it on the last? Because now you're going to get that entire adventure.
All that learning.
You shoot it on the first day, you just lost a whole lot of experiences. You lost all those things that you got to see on the mountain. That whole story, all those trials up there, fighting through, probably going to get some weather, probably going to go through some real tough country, probably going to have to move camp. You're going to get blanked in certain places, but you're going to find that honey hole at a certain point, and you worked your tail off to get there.
Yep.
And that's gratification. Shooting it on your way in, first day, there's not a whole lot of Yeah, okay, the meat thing is awesome. We all want the meat.
Right.
But you're not going to get that
experience.
Yeah, that buzz at the end of it. Like, you just did something great.
And dare I say, we really shouldn't. I'm not going to say hide behind, but we really shouldn't hang our hats on. We're just out there for the meat.
No,
because I'm not. Like
I'm not
I
for
have,
sure.
I have a family, and the meat helps, and I prefer to shoot my game and have I don't mind getting my hands bloody for my meals, and I prefer it that way. But to say that it's a survival situation where I need to get meat on the table, if that was the case, I'd never bow hunt.
No.
Yep.
I'd be pulling out a gun and I'd be going out and killing it. I remember the first time I talked to my grandpa about bow hunting, and his only response was, "You're not very hungry, are you?" and I was
That's
like,
a good one.
Yeah, you're right. Like if it's the dead of winter, we don't have any food, I'm going out and I'm killing. I'm gonna pick up my rifle. I'm not picking up my bow.
Right.
My point being that, yeah, we all go out and we are out there to get meat.
Yeah.
But really, we're out for adventure, and we're out for the test, right?
Yep.
Like we all kind of had this sickness of like, how hard can I make this? And
We want to put ourselves through the ringer.
Yeah,
and
and
come out of it successful.
Yeah, the harder the better. And I think it's in every man. I think every man wants to be tested. Now, does every man test himself in the mountains? I don't know, but I wish they would.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you really want to learn something about yourself, go hunt in the mountains.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then multiply it by 10 if you go solo. Because,
that's right. If
you're not comfortable being alone with yourself in the mountains, or if you've never done it, it's difficult. For a lot of people, it's impossible.
Yep.
We're social beings, right? You want to have conversations. You want to, share what you saw that day. You just want to talk to people. You want to be around somebody. You want that feeling. And if you go out in the mountains, and usually it's like day 2 or 3, a lot of guys they'll hit that point, and I got to go make a phone call, or I got to get on my phone, or I got to talk to somebody. And
loneliness.
It is, yeah. And I think with technology today, it's go, and swipe, and it's really difficult. And I think becoming more so for people in today's society to put all that down and be alone by yourself in the mountains.
Yep.
With none of that, just observing everything.
Yep.
It's huge, and some of us really enjoy that, and we see the benefit of it.
Yeah.
But
it's a world. We live in a world of distractions, so we never really have to get to know ourselves, really.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I would venture to say that, there's probably lots of families out there. I mean, think about how much time, the regular household. I'm just guilty as anybody, but sitting there watching TV in front of the TV instead of like really talking to your wife or your kids or whatever. It's just a distraction so that you can just kind of, have some mindless entertainment. And that's the one thing that I really enjoy about hunting is that the distractions are gone. Life is broke down into stay dry and warm, drink so you're hydrated, and eat when you're hungry, and everything else is instinct. And that's where I'm the best. That's where I feel like I'm the best version of myself, is when life is way more
simplified.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it. You mentioned it's not just the meat, and I couldn't agree more. It's not just about the meat. It's feelings that it's hard to describe, but you just said something perfect there. It's we've all got this in our DNA. Hunting, no distractions. You're completely focused on one task or one goal.
Yep.
Chasing down a critter, something that you've done a bunch of homework on, you've prepped for, you've trained for it. There's no other outside distractions. You're not thinking about bills and money and job and relationships and all this stuff. You're thinking about one task.
Yep.
And honestly, I think that's where we all came from. I think we all have that in us, and it just feels right. It feels natural. At least it does for me.
Yeah.
I think that's just, that's a place where we all strive to get to. Kick out all those distractions, focus on a goal, whether that's, a big buck, a bull, anything you're chasing, and going for it, and you get to forget about all that other junk.
Yep.
So,
all the distractions of life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something, and this kind of builds into this conversation, and that is the reason you would shoot a 300-inch bull 10 miles off the road as opposed to a 360-inch bull is, and this is something that there's a lot of talk out there, and kind of something buzz. It's kind of died down a little bit now, but trophy hunting has been a big issue in you know, our basically industry in the hunting world, I guess. You know, the term trophy hunting, which just makes my skin crawl, the way that people are viewing trophy hunting. And one of the things that was brought to my attention, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think I was listening to the Meat Eater. Man, I've never heard. If you guys haven't listened to the Meat Eater podcast, get on there. Steve Rinella he's just such a smart guy. He has a great demeanor. He's funny, and he has just everything he's
got a great way of explaining things and breaking it down, right?
And so he breaks down like this, which is just, you know, it really, because nobody wants to say I'm a trophy hunter. And he broke it down like this in terms of trophy hunting. He said, sure, I'm a trophy hunter. I think we all are, but not in the terms that people want to believe that we're all out trophy hunting. When we have horns on the wall, we look at that, and that represents all the hard work that went into all the preparation, all the obstacles overcome. It's not the trophy for the trophy's sake, similar to if you had an Olympic gold medal. The Olympic gold medal in and of itself means almost nothing. Like, it's cool to see or whatever, but it almost means nothing unless you have the story behind the gold medal and how you grew up and the mentors and everything it took to get to that point. And so when you pull, and these are guys that I grew up around. I understand there's guys out there that their only mission in life is to kill giant stuff, and they're going to pay big dollars for it. And they're going to have a trophy room full of giant animals, big bucks and big bulls and everything else. But I think for the majority, well, all the guys that I know anyway, they're out there when they're talking about hunting animals and then bringing home horns and having them, you know, mounted and put on the wall, or just Euro mounted or whatever. It's just like a medal. It's just like that gold medal. The bull itself just represents. There's always a story behind it. You know what I mean? Like, there's always, like, tell me the story about that. It's not just a visual trophy. It's the story behind the trophy, which is that's what we do it for. You know, we do it for the story. We do it for the preparation, not necessarily. We're not killers, you know. We don't go out there just with like this mindset of like, I can't wait to kill these. We don't have a vendetta. In fact, it's the opposite, right? Like, we have mad respect for these animals, and we want to honor them and tell people about them. And
and I think that's where it gets lost, you know, in the weeds. Is that term has kind of been hijacked.
Yeah.
It's been turned into a derogatory thing, trophy. Yeah. But man, I mean, you know, that's just it. Us three sitting here, what do we do to get ready for a season? We train all summer.
Yep.
You know, we think about it. I don't know how many hours you're thinking about a hunt, whether that's on map work or physically getting fit for it, or, you know, getting your nutrition right, or, you know, doing all these things. And then you go on that hunt. It's one of the hardest things you can probably do, right? It's going to be the hardest thing you did that year, most likely.
Most likely.
And,
or you hope so.
You hope, right?
Yeah.
That's what we want. I want it to be the hardest thing. I think if you're doing it right, it's the most, at that point in life, you're thinking, that was the hardest thing I just did.
I want to be tested.
Yeah. And, you know, after all those trials and tribulations, and you succeed, and you get this thing, and you shoot it, and you get them down, and you get to that grip and grin. You're happy about it. I mean, you got a smile on your face because you accomplished something.
Yeah.
And what's not seen in that photo is all those trials to get to that point.
Yep.
And that's where people get lost. They just see a guy smiling with a dead animal. But I mean, I could boil it down to like gardening. I mean, I'm a weirdo, so I will smile with a tomato that this giant tomato. I put a ton of work into that. I built the greenhouse. I got my soil right. I baby this thing all summer long, and it gets to that point, and it's this big thing, and I accomplished it, or I created it.
Yeah.
I'll take a photo with that. That's my trophy.
Yeah.
I worked to get that thing to that point.
That's right.
Yeah.
The true trophy is in the journey.
Yeah.
The true trophy is in the journey. The animal is just a representation. The photo or the horns or whatever. It's just a representation of the true trophy, which is the experience and the journey along the way.
Yeah.
Which,
and you know, I wish people that didn't fully understand our mindset and how we truly feel about hunting and animals and the respect that we have for them. If they could just get in on a hunt with us and see the work that we do to get to that point of success, you know, and see the passion that we have for, you know, hiking in and, you know, passing animals that, you know, we could make it easy on ourselves and shoot things from the road. But some of us choose not to because of just that. It's that we want that challenge in our life.
And what most people don't, I think one of the things that gets lost in the weeds, especially with people that maybe just don't quite understand the whole process, is how important it is to us that we get every shred of meat out of that country. Like we don't want to waste a drop. Like that's what we're there for. We're getting it out, or we're gonna die trying.
Yeah, and not just the meat. I mean, we're taking organs out. We're taking bone out sometimes. You know, there's so many.
Get that broth going.
Get that broth going. Every year you find some new part that you can pull out of there and utilize it in some way. And, you know, now, you know, with my wife, you know, pushing it, she informed me or taught me how important bone broth is and all the nutrients you get out of it. So we start packing bone out of the mountains. I never used to. You know, it's just more weight. You used to just bone it out, take every scrap of meat out, but you leave the bones. But now I see a huge benefit in that bone broth. And, you know, you want to be self-sufficient. You want to, you know, supply those nutrients, make some dang good soups that, you know, come wintertime. You pull those bones out, you cut them up, you know, you get the marrow, you know, boiling and get that bone broth pulled out, all those nutrients. Man, I mean, that's just, I love doing that now.
Yeah.
And that's a part of it. Pull the tongue out, we eat the tongue, we eat the, you know, the heart, obviously. Not big on the liver, but.
No liver, no kidneys?
Oh, man, I just can't do the liver.
Yeah.
It's a great dog treat, but I just can't do it.
Oh, you're missing out, buddy. Like you're missing
it's like
out.
It's the one thing I just can't do.
Just can't get it done. You don't pull it out? Like you don't know anybody who.
We'll do the buck nuts, but we can't do the liver.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the liver's like I can be on the fence with the liver. It depends on how you make it. You know, I know my dad always took it out and we'd bring it home, and we had an old friend of ours that would come over and liver and onions, man, and just saute them in like butter, and I mean it was good.
Well, yeah, you got to put butter, garlic, onions to mask that horrible flavor.
Yeah, and that's
why it's.
But it's like
it's
almost like it almost reminded me like the first time I tried it. It almost reminded me of trying to eat a sponge. And it was just like, that's different, you know. But and then I know I killed a buck with my dad back when I was 17 out in the wilderness. And that was the best meal I ever had.
Yeah.
Liver and onions. And my dad cooked it. My dad couldn't cook anything. He couldn't cook cereal.
It could have been how hungry you were at
and
that
it was.
point.
I guarantee it, because I was dragging that deer, hanging it, and all that, and doing all the work out in the middle of the wilderness. And, man, I was just famished, and my dad made liver and onions, and it was the best meal I've ever had.
So good for you. Liver's so good for you.
Yeah.
Bone broth, so good for you.
Definitely.
Here's something. I don't know if I've ever told this story. My dad grew up on the Indian reservation in Montana, in Ronan, Montana. He was his mentor growing up was his grandpa, and his grandpa had this tradition of the first deer that you shoot, you take right there on the pile, you take a bite of the heart, chew it and swallow it. And so here I was 14 years old, shot my first deer, little towhead, and was all excited about it. And Dad showed me, you know, how to gut it and just kind of walked me through it and cut the heart out and handed it over to me. And he's like, all right, take your bite. And right there, 14 years old, grabbed the heart, took a big chunk out of it and chewed and swallowed it right there. It was just the Claremont tradition that I upheld at my end of the deal anyway. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't think I've ever told that story. But, yeah, the first deer I ever killed, I took a big bite of the heart and chewed it and swallowed it.
Yeah, was there any traditions for you guys?
No, you know, I had heard of that tradition, but we never had that.
Yeah.
No,
I'm proud to say that I did it, man. It was just like one of those moments that you just obviously it was just kind of a passageway, right? To like, now you're a hunter. Now you can say you're a hunter and you show respect to the animal. You chew on the heart. And I took bites of the heart for the first like 3 or 4 deer that I
You're not still doing it?
I'm not still doing it.
No,
I'm not still doing it. Just I do eat the heart of every animal that I shoot, and I've never cut the liver off, but I'm gonna start because liver and the bones. I'm gonna start doing the bone broth because of the benefits. I never heard of somebody cutting the tongue out until I heard that you're like, man, you got to get that tongue out of there, man.
That is the best. I mean, the deer, it's pretty small. You don't get a ton of meat off it, but oh man, on those elk, it is so worth it. That is a solid meal right there for the family of 4. You can make tacos with it. It's just phenomenal. It's really good.
Unreal. Well, one of the first.
Try and shame people leave that thing.
Just find a fresh carcass and be like, I wonder if they took the tongue out of this.
Yeah. Between that and the heart, I think. My daughter, she's big on the heart. She loves it. That's the first thing I hear about when I walk in the house from a hunt is, Daddy, did you get the heart? I want to eat heart today. Yeah. You know, that's her favorite thing. So that's
one thing about heart too, is that if you get a heart, cook it that same night. Yeah, that's the best. The more fresh you can get, the better. And it's good. It's well worth the trimming and the extra work you got to do.
This last one I did a little bit different. I pulled out the last deer I got here in Montana, and you know, I'd wrapped it, pulled the heart out, and I'd wrapped it in that caul fat, that belly fat that comes out. Wrapped it all up, and I baked it, and man, that was so good.
Really,
just had like a crisp to it. I crisped the outside, just a high temp in the oven, and baked it, and then just let it kind of stew within that. That was one of the best meals. Me and my daughter were all over it.
You just did it whole?
Yeah, just did it whole. Yep.
That's awesome.
Wow. Man, you need to make a cookbook.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you mentioned just the preparation that you put into hunting, and I know just from experience that you take pride in being prepared for the mountains, physically, field craft. You spend times researching your areas, and you spend a lot of times just out looking over new country. What do you do to physically get ready? Like what have you done in the past, and then kind of tap into like Train to Hunt and how you found. I mean, we did already mention that we just kind of connected on you getting a Train to Hunt challenge, but kind of talk a little bit about what you used to do, and now maybe how now that you do these Train to Hunt competitions and how it's changed.
Man, see, I was hoping I was just going to be able to say Train to Hunt, drop the mic and walk. That was it. All right. Yeah. So from before, I've always been into just getting prepared, and a lot of what used to be my preparation was just spending time in the mountains, scouting a lot. And that would just get you in shape for it.
Yeah,
that's kind of what you needed. You needed to hike in, whether you're dropping gear that you're going to utilize later. So I'd cache stuff and and then scouting, a lot of scouting. That was working out. I've always done a little bit of running. It's not a huge thing for me,
right?
But working out in the gym a little bit, mountain biking quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There's nothing, one thing that's like, okay, that's all I would do.
That's my regiment. No. Your regiment was, I'm going to spend time in the mountains.
Spend time in the mountains.
Which I've argued with people about, why would you pass up a scouting trip in the mountains to work out. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Why, it's like trying to tell a wrestler that they should go run instead of spend time on the mat. Like, it just doesn't make sense. When you're preparing for the mount for hunting and that terrain and that environment, the more time you can spend in that environment, the better. In fact, I know that there's some like guys out there that are they're not big into the hunting athlete movement. They think it's just, man, it's kind of a waste of time, or like, I don't know why people are buying into this whole get in shape for hunting thing. You just need to spend time in the mountains, which I agree. If you can spend 100 days in the mountains when you're not hunting, that's why we're training, because we don't have the ability to get in the mountains that often. And a lot of us live in cities or live in big towns, or we live a long way from where we're actually hunting. So we have to simulate a mountain situation so that when we get to our mountain situation, we're prepared for that. If you live close enough to where you can just go get on your mountain, buddy, go do that. Why do 20-inch box step-ups for an hour when you can just go climb the hill for an hour
and do exactly what you're going to be doing?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I think, I think back then that was the best for me. I think now it's changed a little bit just with knowledge. I think, obviously you like to challenge ourselves with things that are kind of going to prepare us. Big hikes, the train to hunt events. I like getting myself some of those dates, some of those events on a calendar. It just it forces you to be ready.
Yeah.
Like, you put yourself on the calendar for some events, whether it's a 5K, 10K, 50K, a train to hunt event.
That's right.
A death march of some kind. I want to do those things throughout the summer and just do some hard things that I know there's going to be hard hunts in the fall every year. They don't get any easier.
Right.
They probably could be, but we want to make them harder every year. So we got to do tough things. And getting things on the calendar, I think, is huge. It forces you to be prepared and be ready for it. I really do like mixing it up. I do like hiking, but I also feel like you do need to get a little gym time in to kind of strengthen, the muscles. To be quite honest, I think if I just hiked long distances, flat ground, no weight, I'd probably injure myself if I was, to go out and just start hiking mile after mile after mile.
Yeah.
I think overuse would be a factor.
Absolutely.
Whereas lifting heavy things at times, strengthening up that, I think that's going to help you in the long run, getting those muscles around your joints and everything strengthened up. I think that's where a little bit of this, a little bit of that helps.
Yep.
But honestly, now I've fallen in love with these events. Obviously, your event is phenomenal. It's a big part of my year. And then these big, long hikes.
Those death marches.
Death marches, if you will. So those things are fun, and they come at the right time. They're just a precursor to our hunting season.
Yep.
And so come August and September, when we all want to be at our peak performance, you're ready for it. If you're putting some 40, 50 mile hikes on the calendar for July, and you're going to be ready for that, and you can do it and you accomplish it. And this year we've got a 100-mile hike coming up. Hunt Harvest Health, we're going to get a big over 50-mile hike in the Cascades.
Nice.
And we're just going to put those down, see who shows up, and do it, and be ready for hunting season.
Absolutely.
I think that's what's going to keep me hunting into my 80s. I want to be hunting as an old man. So
absolutely, longevity, buddy. Longevity is the key. Like, it's great to be able to do it now, but unless you take care of yourself physically, nutritionally, sleep, all these things that come into play.
Well, that's why I like this train to hunt, because it's like, it's not just one thing. It's not just shooting your bow and hiking a hill. You've got it mixed up. You've got all the little exercises and challenges, and being able to work in scenarios like elevated heart rate. And I've hunted a lot of years, and I've only been doing train to hunt a couple, and I was pretty quick to realize shooting with an elevated heart rate, if you haven't practiced it, is difficult.
Yeah.
So That's just something that's kind of in the routine now.
Yeah.
And I realize, you know, how I can really screw up a shot if I don't get myself right, if I'm not, you know, at that point where I, you know, I've got my pin settled.
And you know what? There's a big misconception about that. There's a lot of there was a lot of lashback on why are you having people shoot with an elevated heart rate? Why are you trying to get people used to shooting when they're breathing through their eyeballs? And it's never been about that, Ryan. It's always been about training yourself. Number one, in what I'd call maybe worst case scenario. I mean, let's face it, like not very often are you going to have to like really get after it uphill and be breathing through your eyeballs and suddenly an elk's coming like right now. It's about training yourself to be able to calm your heart rate. Number one, be in good enough physical condition that your heart rate slows down quickly.
How fast can you snap back from an elevated heart rate?
And secondly, how can you go from I'm busting up this hill, I'm breathing through my eyeballs, and now I've stopped. What is my routine so that I can calm myself down and make a good ethical shot? That's what it's about. It's not about I want to teach people how to
shoot with poor form,
fire off a shot while they're moving around and they're breathing, their bow arms moving, and they punch the trigger. That's not the point of it. The point is especially when you first start doing these high elevated heart rate workouts where you're doing some activity and then shooting. You know, like in the Train to Hunt challenge when you're running with a weighted, you know, you're moving quickly through a trail system with a little weight on your back and you come to a target. The idea isn't to stop and get a shot off as quickly as you can. It's about recovering as quickly as you can and then taking a good clean shot and then moving forward.
Yeah, that's why there's the penalty.
Yep.
You know, that teaches you to know where you're comfortable taking a good shot.
Yeah.
Versus if you'd never done that and there was that scenario.
Yep.
You may punch the trigger and take a bad shot, a piss poor shot on an animal.
Yep.
But I think folks that have done it, like you've set it up, it's going to be in their head. They're going to think about it like, all right, I know this is how I got to execute. This is how many seconds I got to take. This is where I feel right taking the shot.
Yep.
Instead of just pulling up and punching that trigger.
That's
off.
right. And the people that are doing it right, they're doing a little bit of self-quantification, right? Like they know like their breathing routine or their thought process that puts them in their shot cycle, you know, whether it be, I know that I have to take 2 or 3 deep breaths through my nose and out through my mouth or box breathe or whatever it might be for them. And that gets my heart rate down to where I can shoot a good, clean, ethical, like feel fully confident about this shot. And, you know, if they run into a situation like that and they hit in the mountains where they get up there and that bull is there now, they're going to know I got to get 3 breaths in before I can pull my bow. I can't, you know, or before I can shoot. I can maybe pull my bow, but I'm going to have to wait. Okay, I can get those. Now I can shoot. Yeah. You know, and it's something that people don't do, right? They don't do it. They stand in their backyard in standing position and everything's just perfect scenario. They're usually like even in a 3D shoot or anything like that, and they're just shooting arrows as opposed to shooting from a kneeling position and drawing and holding and, you know, drawing from a kneeling position and moving out from a bush and shooting or shooting with an elevated heart rate or those types of things. That's what the whole event, that's why I created the event, was to give people an accurate measuring stick on how their training is doing up to this point. And I can't tell you over the last 7 years how many times I've heard people say, I really need to work on shooting in pressure situations. And it's great. Every time I hear that, I'm stoked because that's what I did.
I think that's what I came to you and said after my first event was, wow, I realized I got to work on that.
Yeah.
I think also the elevated heart rate thing, because you know you talk about like you're running up a hill or you're going up in the mountains and you can be a tree stand hunter. You know, I mean, I know I hunt blacktail and it's right out my front door.
So it's not like it's not a hard, like grinder of a hunt.
Right.
It's more grinding mentally. But man, I've been on blacktail hunts where a doe pops out, and I'm just hunting for meat, right? And my heart rate jumps through the roof.
Adrenaline shot. Boom.
That adrenaline shot. And that's Train to Hunt is the closest thing I've gotten to simulate that adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
Is just getting your heart rate up and seeing how, where that, like you said, ethical shot comes from, what heart rate I need to be at to make an ethical shot.
And how to get there is the most
important.
important.
To get there. Yeah.
How do I get myself calmed down?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be because I've been doing some strenuous physical activity or I had just got a big adrenaline dump.
Yeah. How
do I calm myself down to make this shot?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that, there's great hunters out there that just, they suddenly have this panic or whatever you want to call it. And they're not sure how to get themselves calm. And,
right.
and people who have a routine similar to a free throw routine, right? They do the same thing every time, and they know what the result's going to be. They're going to make it, whether it be bounce twice, spin, look at the rim, and shoot. They got a thought process. They got a physical routine. The same thing should be when you shoot your bow. Every time you shoot your bow, you should have a mental and a physical routine a checklist that you go through every time.
Oh, yeah.
It shouldn't be a mindless.
Bad things happen when you're not thinking about it. You don't have a routine. Absolutely.
And in every situation, if you have a good routine and you have a good shot, process that you get into, you run through the checklist or whatever it might be for you, and it's very personal. Everybody's a little different. It's kind of chance. I mean, that's why guys miss chip shots. That's why you just, I don't know what happened. Well,
I remember growing up, I'd go down to the archery shop, and there was a guy, his name was Dick Salvino, and he was a great shot. He taught me a ton. On the course, on his targets, he was a phenomenal shot. We'd go out and shoot 3D, amazing. In a hunting situation, he'd be the first guy to tell you. He couldn't tell you how many bulls he missed at 10 yards.
Yeah.
5 yards. I mean, I heard story after story after story. Chip shots. He just could not control himself.
Yeah.
He'd just punch it and shoot right over the back.
Yeah.
90% of the time.
And that's not fun.
No, and
that's not fun. Like,
it sounds pretty common too. Like it happens to a lot of folks.
And it's just not. It's not fun to put in all that work and then watch that animal run off because you couldn't get control of it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think it's probably the main thing that people learn at the Train Hunt Challenges is that, man, I really need to build that into my my strategy. Is I need some sort of a shot system or shot routine. Man, I think I need to get better at moving through the mountains with weight on my back. But that's a whole nother story. But it's fun to see the event evolve over the years and to see people come out and do it. I think that there is that misconception about the intimidation factor about, man, I don't think I could do that, or what are the people going to be like? And I know that I kind of a broken record in that respect, but until you come out and do it, right? I mean, I'll be honest, I was intimidated until I was forced in it by Mr. Wise over there. Gritty.
I don't know if I forced you. I just invited you, man.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'll drive down to Nevada.
But my wife found out about it, and she would have called me a big sissy if I wouldn't have done it. So. No, she's always pushing me to get out of my comfort zone, and that was just the thing, That's, that's the perfect thing, to get you out of your comfort zone. And once you try it, you realize everybody's super cool and down to earth and like-minded. Yeah. People just wanting to get better and, train. And I think the heavy weights and all that, I don't know, it's just an excuse. We're all going to pack that amount of weight at some point.
Yeah, it's 50 pounds now. The heavy bags are 50 pounds.
You better be going into the season with the ability to pack 50 pounds.
Yeah.
If you're a backcountry guy.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. So.
You should.
Yep.
So Ryan,
Yeah.
you've seen a lot of changes in hunting over the years. How?
You can say it, man. I'm old.
Yeah, you're old. We're all old. I mean, you're old. Are you older than me? I think so. Just I'm 43.
Yep, I'm 44.
Yep. Gosh, you are old.
I am old.
You guys
Jeez,
are freaking in
I
your
know.
40s, man.
You're
the
coming
label
up
of
on it.
masters on us, so it sounds old.
So, hunting has changed a lot since we were kids. I think that we can all agree that it's just times are just changing. You can't drop your kid off on the river all day long, or you'd probably have government beating down your
CPS.
door and trying to take your kid away. Where do you see hunting in 20 years from now?
All right. Boy, in 20 years, I mean, I can tell you where I'd like to see it. Honestly, I think optimistically, I see a pretty big movement going on right now with guys. The health thing, the health part of it is good. That's very hopeful. I like that. I like people taking their health serious and working its way into the hunting realm. I think that's huge. A lot of us want to do this. We love what we do. We love hunting. I don't want to be, old, fat, and out of shape at 50 where I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I want to be able to do it. It's a passion. It's something that's a huge part of my life. So the health and fitness part seems to be taking hold, and I really like seeing that. And I think it's here to stick. I mean, I don't see it going the other way. I think it's getting bigger. A lot of people are seeing the advantages of it and how it's going to help you. The backcountry movement seems to be getting more popular, and that's great. I think getting people, more comfortable with being uncomfortable and taking on big challenges like backcountry hunting, that's pretty special, I think. What I think is right now, through social media, which I give a lot of credit to this, is people are starting to figure out how to better explain why we do what we do.
Yeah.
I think it's just my opinion. I'd say 5 years ago, maybe less than that, I would have said we're going to lose the ability to hunt in my lifetime. Maybe it's because I'm here in Washington State. I'm surrounded by folks that, don't really care for it. They're kind of on that opposite end. They don't understand it, so they don't care for it. I think if they had the switch, they'd turn it off. But I think there's a growing number of people that are learning how to explain ourselves as to why it's valuable, why it's important, why we need to keep it going. I think Gritty's been really good on it, talking about how to approach people, not just staying in our little world of hunters, because it is a pretty small world, small community, 10%. Instead of just talking amongst ourselves and turning a blind eye to all the other people on the trail that we run into, but taking that opportunity to explain why we're doing it, our love for it, the meat, talk about everything, to where they actually see us respecting the animals, really having a passion for what we do. I see that turning around. I think the old days of just blowing those people off like, oh, they're an ant, I could give a crap less about them. I don't think that's going to get us anywhere. And I think a lot more people now have realized that. So, I credit a lot of the podcasters out there for getting that message out and, get people to realize that's a huge part of our future is being able to explain ourselves. And it's nothing that we should be ashamed of. It's something we should, we're proud of, and we should be able to talk about it, but, have some intelligence about how you talk about it, in a respectful manner, and not just, oh, it's legal, I should be able to do it.
That's right.
Piss off.
In the past, in the recent past, most people have thought, I don't care what you think. Who are you to judge me? I'm going to do what I want to do, and that's the end of the conversation, as opposed to really trying to shed some light on on why and what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the whole paleo movement, people are becoming very aware of what they're putting in their bodies.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of people out there, way more than hunters. There's a lot of people out there who don't hunt are going to grass-fed beef and, responsibly raised fish and harvested fish and chicken. And like, people are really becoming aware of this organic movement that's been around for a long time. But, CrossFit really just shed a lot of light onto the paleo movement, and that there's a lot of health benefits to eating organic meat. And people, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that organic meat, the elk and deer and critters that we're getting in the mountains, that's about as organic as you're going to get, because you know where that animal was born, you know how it died, you know how it was handled after it died. And unless you know those three things, where it was born, where it lived, how it died, and how it was handled after it died, there's always a question mark. It can say organic on the package, but unless you know, and I think people understand that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think people are getting that. They understand that's a good reason. Before it was all about we're hungry. There was no question. When it's a survival situation, no one's going to question that. Our recent past, 50 years ago, nobody questioned hunters, because that's what they were out there. They were getting meat, and that's how people ate.
Yeah.
Now, since we have meat so readily available, and most people have the means to go out and get it, whether you have a job or not, you can have the means to go get some protein. Now, it's more for the health benefits. And people are starting to understand that.
I think they want to get more connected with what they're eating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, the last 50 years, with more stores, restaurants, seeing that pretty little package in a cellophane wrapper,
yep.
That was food. But people didn't really understand it. It's a very huge, it's a big disconnect from where we were 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I think people are wanting to get back to that. They're obviously seeing the health benefits of,
yep.
Even a grain-fed cow. There's a huge difference between a grain-fed cow, even though it hasn't been pumped with antibiotics or hormones, to a grass-fed deer or elk or whatever.
Or even a grass-fed cow.
You can have a grass-fed cow. And they're starting to realize the massive health benefits to that.
Yeah.
And the energy, wasted in a lot of big farms, and versus us being able to go up there, take these animals responsibly. I think the biggest disconnect between antis, or not even antis, I'd say that 80% in the middle, is they've just never understood it. And so now we live in this era where guys like Joe Rogan are talking about it. They were kind of oblivious to what we did before, and they had a mindset. They just thought they knew hunters were out killing stuff, and it was bad.
Yeah.
Probably would have turned it off if given the chance. But he got educated on it. He's a smart dude. And once he immersed himself in it, he realized, hey, there's something to this.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what it takes for everybody, is to, they just need to be aware of what it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
And, fortunately with social media, surprisingly enough, it's helping us.
Yeah. And if we can continue on this path of educating people on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the health benefits of doing it.
Right.
20 years from now could look better than it does now.
Yeah.
Or the same, not this decline in public land. That's a whole nother topic, but this decline or this huge movement against what we're trying to do.
Well, I think the health scare, in society today, I mean, you look at the spike in diabetes, you look at, all the things out there that are basically due to diet. I think that's becoming, aware to a lot of folks.
Yeah.
A lot of this has to do with boxed foods, processed foods, junk.
Yeah.
A disconnect from real food.
Yep.
And so, I think that I don't see this movement slowing down any. I think, growing your own and knowing where it came from and all that is super important. And I just think, I think when you ask, where do you see it going? I'm pretty optimistic that it's going that direction.
Yeah.
And I see, I'm not advocating and never will for more hunters to be out there, but I just want people to understand it and understand what we do and why we do it.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a tough argument against what we do as being okay.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Well, man, we're rubbing up against it, buddy. And
Yeah, we're ready.
man, it's been awesome. I think we could probably carry this podcast out for another
Hour and a half.
Yeah. But I want to be respectful of your time, and it's starting to get a little bit late. So we do have one more question for you. That is an interesting question. If we're all headed in the same direction, we all know that it's just the process of life. We understand it very clearly, especially the first time you take an animal's life. You understand the whole circle of life, and that we also know that we're all heading in that direction. We're all at some point we're not going to be here. I think it's important for all people to think about, what kind of legacy they want to leave behind. And I can see you just like grinding your gears. If you imagine basically at some point you're gonna die and you're gonna have a headstone, and people are gonna walk by the headstone. What do you want that headstone to say besides your name and the day you died, born and died? Like what would it say?
Oh man.
Here lies a man.
All right, man, that's a deep one, Mr. Kenton.
I know. We're getting deep. We're getting deep.
If you have to cry, feel free to do it after the podcast.
Okay, so what would I want my headstone to say? Gosh, I think I don't want it to sound too cliche either. I just, I'm a pretty simple guy, so I think I want to live my life in a way respectful to others. I think I'd like it to say, live life to the fullest. Loved, laughed, loved his family, and, treating others like I'd want them to treat me. And I think that's about as good as I can do.
Yeah. Love, laugh.
Yeah.
Treat
and
others
live life.
And live life.
Yep. You're only here once. So
I think they made a movie about that.
Is it? It's probably on a postcard. I probably read it. It's working.
So you answered this question too. If you had the world's attention, everybody stopped and looked your direction, and the record scratched, and everybody stopped, and you had their attention, what would you say to them?
Oh man, what would I say to them? I'd probably be a little bit mean and say, stop being so petty, realize what's real and what's nonsense. And, we live in a world today where there's so much nonsense out there. I've had to stop listening to the news. It's just gotten crazy. Everybody seems real petty. And, gosh, that's a tough one, man.
I think that was good, man. Stop being so petty. Drop the mic.
There you go. Drop the mic. Walk away.
Yeah. I mean,
they're tough questions, man.
Yeah.
And they're meant to be tough.
Yeah.
I think that.
Well, you could say so much. I mean, society's a mess right now, to be quite honest. And there's just a lot of whining, and I think a lot of people whine when they've got it pretty dang good. Especially in this country. I think if people saw how other people live at one point in their life and realized, we don't have it so bad, I think a lot of that whining would go away.
Yeah.
People get a little spoiled and I don't know. They're just petty and a lot of whiners out there today, and it's unfortunate. So,
yeah.
I try to turn all that off now and get closer to folks that aren't like that. We don't really need that in my life.
Yeah.
I only live once, so.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, tell people where they can find you, man.
Oh, well, like I said, we do that podcast, Hunt Harvest Health. So huntharvesthealth.com, we've got that. And then, the Instagram, the old Instagram. I think
Ryan
that's
on Instagram.
number one for me. That's where I answer questions from a lot of folks. And that's Stay Healthy Hunter. It's STHEA. So Stay Healthy Hunter.
Stay Healthy Hunter.
That's about it.
And you've been getting pretty good at taking selfies with your with your racks in the passenger seat.
When you're a solo guy, that's the one selfie that I'm not too bummed out about taking is with a rack or with my critter.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, Ryan, it's been a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on today. This is cool.
Good. I met you years ago, but I'm just now starting to get to know you, and it's awesome. You just meet those guys where you're like, man, this is a guy that I could, share a campfire with, and you're one of those guys. I appreciate it, and thanks for coming on the podcast. We will put Ryan's information in the show notes, and Ryan, again, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
We're out.
Train hard, guys.
Train hard. Train to hunt.